What is up, AFC North football fans, and welcome into another edition of the AFC North Roundtable, powered by BetUS. Week 13 is in the books. What an entertaining weekend of NFL football it was. 3 games within the division, including an interdivisional battle between the Steelers and the Bengals that we won't soon forget, dare I say. An instant classic. We'll talk about it with the fellas coming up. Big game between the Eagles and the Ravens. We'll talk about how the Ravens looked in their loss to Philadelphia. And the Jameis Winston show rolls on. I know it was a loss for Cleveland, but man, that is must-see television. We're talking all about it tonight on the Week 13 recap episode of the AFC North Roundtable. Without further ado, let's bring in the fellas. Mark, Zay, Sam, and Zim. Mark, you told me that you were going to be a bit late trying to find the Sonnies. You couldn't find them.
Yeah. Look, I just feel good. I've got Sonnies here, but you know what? You really should be wearing Sonnies in the inside. And I know the minute I do that, when I be too overconfident, and then Zay's going to start laughing and it's all going to fall down. So I'm just trying to keep it cool. Keep it cool. Keep it as cool as I can.
Well, maybe you can wear them, Mark, when you eventually beat somebody. We know that the Steelers haven't beaten anybody, so maybe that's when you can put them on. Speaking of those Steelers, before we dive into it, I'm curious how you feel about this, because I'm looking over on BetUS right now at the updated odds to win the AFC. And currently, despite the fact that the Steelers do have a full game lead right now in the division, Mark, your Steelers are plus 950 to win the AFC. The Ravens have more than double the odds in a better way. They're plus 425. Chiefs, plus 225. I don't know if you guys see what I'm seeing, but I see a certain team out of Buffalo, New York that might be the favorite to win the whole thing right now on these odds. Chiefs number 2, but then it comes down to the Steelers and the Ravens. And real quick, Mark, your thoughts on the Steelers still not getting any love in the betting market?
Well, the thing is, and like Sean's comment, if we beat the Browns and beat the Ravens, we win the North. So the other games, that doesn't really matter, because if we end up in 11 wins and beat the Ravens, we are in the tiebreaker. Ravens are the bye this week too. So if we beat the Browns, we're up by 2, and then the Eagles going to be a tough game. But it's been happening all year. I'm kind of used to it by now, so it doesn't bother me. The one big hangover is that playoff win that hasn't happened in 7 years. We all know about that, but this is a much different team, a different team. If you go and watch Hard Knocks, it's a different team to what it was last year or 2 years ago. And we have a quarterback now. We have an actual quarterback. You're being a little bit too level-headed for me right now, Mark. Yeah. I'm starting to get scared. Because I feel like you're starting to feel something special with Pittsburgh, and you don't want to oversell it. Meanwhile, the YouTube 150 is the promo code on BetUS if you want to get in on all of those updated AFC Championship odds and all the other lines on BetUS. YouTube 150, the promo code that gets you 150% sign-up bonus, up to $2,000 on your first deposit, and 125% bonus on your next 2 after that. All right, speaking of those Steelers, let's start there. I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams could have predicted the way that this game was going to go. And I'm not talking about who won it. I'm talking about in the fashion in which they won it. 44-38 in an AFC North game, with the Pittsburgh Steelers involved being the team with 44. Just when you thought Pittsburgh was defined as a team that wins sloppy games that are low scoring, this team finds a way throughout the year here to win in a multitude of different ways, including this past weekend, putting up 44 points. Meanwhile, with the Bengals, another game where Joe Burrow puts up high 30s, puts up over 300 yards, puts up multiple touchdowns, and it still isn't enough. This Cincinnati Bengals D, man, oh man, so much to unpack from this one. But as I'm watching this one, fellas, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it happened right off the bat. I mean, at halftime, they'd already set the record for the most points scored in this rivalry at half, and they never let up. Zay, I'm going to start with you on with this one here, because your Browns didn't play until Monday night, so you got a chance to sit back and watch this one, take it all in. What were your overall thoughts? Obviously, knowing this division as well as anybody, to watch these two teams duke it out in the fashion that they did.
Jim, no shots to you, but trash. I was like, what the hell am I watching? I'm like, man, this is some BS. We just beat the dog piss out of these Pittsburgh Steelers, and all of a sudden these putty tats couldn't do nothing. Like, what the hell was going on? No, I was just like, but I was disgusted, because I'm sitting here and I needed a couple things to go my way for my Maltese. And all of a sudden, Van Jefferson goes, for how the hell, Zim? You need one stop, bro. You need one stop to give the ball back to Joe Burrow to basically do what we all know Joe Burrow was going to come down and do. And these motherfuckers go 3rd and 9, and they get a 43-yard catch to a guy who ain't caught a ball in like 6 weeks. Has Van Jefferson caught a pass in like 6 weeks? Like, be honest.
I would say he has.
Well, it didn't seem like it, damn it, because that was the icebreaker for me. I'm just pretty much sick of these Pittsburgh Steelers, man. I cannot believe that Russell Wilson fell into your guys' lap the way that it did, because it couldn't have been a more perfect storm for you guys. And like Z just mentioned, you feel something brewing, bro. I feel the same freaking thing for you bums, and I hope you guys get bounced in the first round.
Yeah, you feel something brewing because what you're seeing, it's the opposite of what you're used to. You're used to Pittsburgh winning games and Tomlin having a winning record. You're not used to seeing a quarterback, and I'm including Ben Roethlisberger in this. You're not used to seeing a Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback put up 414 yards, 3 TDs, and 44 points. That's what Russell Wilson did. We're just a few weeks removed from this being a major move of controversy starting Russell Wilson. So, Sam, you're watching this one. You saw these Steelers beat your Ravens without scoring a touchdown. They beat these Bengals, putting up what felt like 10 touchdowns. What did you take away from this game?
Well, for me, the first time this season that I've seen the Steelers actually play some decent football.
Here we go.
I've been waiting for it. Even if the Steelers had lost this game, I still would have been here giving Steelers props because that's what I'm waiting for. I've been waiting for this the entire season to see a team put up the offense. Now, I know it's the Bengals defense, and I know the Bengals defense has been pretty shaky this year, but just seeing them have that potential is going to give them confidence heading into the postseason, and that makes me nervous as a Ravens fan. But as far as what I saw from the Steelers, that's scary. I mean, you don't want to see that if you're a Ravens fan, obviously. So shout outs to both teams. It was a great game. I mean, it was spectacular from both sides. We know how the Bengals do it. They're going to score points every single week, but they always find a way to lose games. And this is the one game I was rooting for them to win, obviously, for the Ravens, and they let me down. But if you're a Steelers fan, you have to be pretty happy with what you're seeing here. And if you're an AFC contender, you're not very happy because the Steelers team looking like they might be competing for a championship.
Zim, from my perspective, being a Bills fan, it's really hard for me to say what I'm about to say because the Bengals have always been a direct threat to the Bills, and they're a team, haven't played much in the Allen Burrow era, but when they do, it's just felt like the Bengals have had the edge. So when I say this, I mean it with all sincerity. I genuinely feel bad right now for this Cincinnati Bengals offense and this fan base because what they're doing on that side of the ball is Super Bowl caliber to the nth degree, and Joe Burrow would more than likely be your odds-on favorite to win the MVP, if not right behind Allen and in front of Saquon Barkley, if this team was able to pull out wins. And Joe Burrow's doing everything imaginable to put this team in position to do that. This defense has gone from bad to almost historically bad. And I feel like when you're allowing 44 to Pittsburgh, not that they're not capable, they've scored 30-plus a couple of times this year, and I know we're not used to that, but this is still unprecedented. What is your takeaway at this point now? Because on one side of the ball, you're watching the best in the business. On the other side of the ball, it's completely costing you the season.
This started week 1, bro. Like every time that I come on the show, think about it. If y'all really go back and go watch the shows, you're saying instant classic every time. The Bengals are a fun team to watch. You're very fun. Go think. I know that you're not a Bengals fan, but the Commanders game. Think about all these primetime games.
Both Ravens games, right? By the way,
Zay was just talking about a 39-yard pass. Like, sir, did you see us play the Ravens up 21-7 and then give up a 90-yard pass to who was that, bro?
Tylan Wallace.
Like Tylan Wallace.
Wow. Oh my God.
So that's part of your MO.
This is what they've been doing the whole year. Burrow comes out there. I'm talking about in both of those games. Come on, bro. Like, if we had won, I would have been coming back with stat and after whatever. Like, Joe Burrow is leading the league in yards. He's like second in completion percentage. He's number 1 in touchdowns. Like, this dude is really cooking, like, on a different level. There's a lot to be said. A lot of people will be like, well, he's doing that because they're playing behind garbage. It's not garbage time. Like, that game on Sunday, him being down 10, 12 points was probably the closest you'll get to garbage time with him. And even still, it still was like an opportunity for him to get the ball back. This dude has been playing like that, or the offense has been playing like that. You got Jamar Chase about to win a triple crown. yards, touchdowns, receptions. He's the number one player in that category or whatever. And the defense, the weird thing about him, there are times where I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, they make a couple stops and then they give him an opportunity, but then something crazy will happen. Credit to TJ Watt making a play. The game's 21-21. To me, I thought the biggest play of the game was the strip sack TJ Watt on Joe Burrow. Because that was a critical part in the game. And once they scored, now the defense, we could say the defense is like super bad in its totality, but the defense makes a stop, right? And then they come back and Bengals they go 3-and-out. And then they come back and the defense makes another stop. They get a field goal. Then we come out of the halftime, whatever. It's a tip pass in the air interception. So then, and then the defense comes back and answers and gets a blocked field goal. But then when we score or whenever it's time, like Chargers game the other night, 24-24, Instant Classic, same thing. It's like every single time that they have an opportunity to go and seize the day or like Carpe Diem, it's just they don't do it. They're not built like that. And I really feel like it starts with their head coach and it kind of trickles down to all these different things. But that anybody that's played us, like if you got a wide receiver 5, 6, or 7, that person's going to get a crazy play at the end of the game, crazy play at a weird time. And it's the oddest season I've ever seen. There's so many stats out there that's just showing like this has never happened before. The only time that a quarterback has ever done this, they've had an MVP. Like it's a million of those things going out there. It's a very odd season.
You touched on this briefly, but how much of this falls on Zach Taylor and why?
I think it starts, to me, I think it's Zach Taylor because Bengals have been at 8 one-score games, and they lost 7 of them. And I feel like the captain, and it's a lot of times it's a missed field goal, whether it was the Ravens game, it was a missed field goal in the Commanders game. It was all these different things. He went for it early in the Eagles game, turned a game that was really close into a blowout. Like no matter what, in these crunch moment times, he's not pulling it out of this team to make them like go above and beyond to like cook up at the very end of the games. Like, but I don't know. Like to me, when you watch it, I watched a bit of the Hard Knocks and stuff. I feel like the team does. I don't feel like he connects with the team that well. I feel like he's a good coach. I think if he were on the Panthers right now and he was coaching Bryce Young and for where their team is at, he'd probably be really good for them, installing an offense and, like he'd probably be really good for them.
Sounds like Kevin Stefanski.
But where the Bengals are at right now, coming off of the success that they've had in the last 3 years or whatever, and I think they reached this point where they're just like, I think it's time for them to move on. The scary thing is because they are a top 3 offense in football, I could see them in a crazy wild world keep Zach Taylor and just change the defensive coordinator, which I'm not a fan of.
It's funny you mentioned that. I felt the exact same way, and I have no lineage to any of these teams, but I'm watching that Hard Knocks. You can see the stark difference in the relationship and the overall demeanor of Harbaugh and Tomlin compared to Stefanski, and in particular, Taylor. I remember that scene in Hard Knocks where Tomlin gave Russell Wilson a kiss on the head. Russell Wilson says, "Love you, man." Like, it just feels like that's there, and that ultimately translates into things that you can't see tangibly, but it does result in victories. And I wonder if that is something that is ultimately affecting this team. One more quick thing for you, Zim. I'm just curious. Joe Burrow's playing this way. Jamar Chase is playing this way. They got to be getting together when these games are done and being like, man, I mean, what do we do here? What are your thoughts there? Because, I mean, we're watching all-time stuff just be completely thrown in the garbage here.
I think that Joe Burrow said that. He said some things are going to have to change. You know what I mean? And the last time he won the AFC North, it was 2022. He came to the podium and said, this is the standard. And early in 2023 season, he got hurt. And when he came back, he reminded people, like, that's where we're at right now. Like, anything less than that is unacceptable. So a lot of our fans are like, they're going to just keep the coach. I'm like, you ain't never had a Joe Burrow before. Like, you've had a Boomer Esiason. You had a Carson Palmer. We set Carson Palmer ass at home and told you, like, hey, look, like, if you're going to come rock with us, you're going to rock with us. If not, our owner was like, yeah, we'll sit you at home. Like, they're not playing those games with the people. But they never had, like, for everybody that's not a Bengals fan, think about how often you see Joe Burrow, like, on your timeline, and you're like, Why the hell are they showing me this shit? He has so much pull that I don't think the Bengals have ever seen like that in the emergence of social media and stuff like that. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on the organization, and that's what we're mainly banking on. And if you go look at the money and everything like that, the Bengals have $100 million in cap space coming up. They got $70 million, but they got some cuts that they're about to do. So I think the changes go hand in hand with, look, it's going to be Burrow and Chase and maybe T. We figure out something because that's still in play. And then we move forward with that. But I don't know. Like right now, we're still, this is my first week of mock drafts. I'm still trying to figure it out. I looked at I started looking at prospects. I know my corner. I know what I'm about to do. But, for the players, they're still playing. They're not benching him. We've just put the kicker on IR. The linebackers on IR. Like Orlando Brown about to go on IR. So guys are kind of checking out a little bit. But Burrow and Chase look like they about to go try to get this triple crown. Burrow's the lead. I went on Bet US. He's the leading vote getter for comeback player of the year. So I feel like it's a good, smart bet if you want to make some quick cash.
Maybe for Bengals fans, the hope is you have like an Eagles-type draft where the defense seemed to be a real Achilles heel last year, and all of a sudden we're talking about them maybe playing the best defense in the sport right now. And when you pair that with an offense that's quite similar to the Bengals in terms of what they're putting up, because if they just get a mid-tier defense, I'm telling you, man, I don't even know what this team would be currently. But unfortunately for the Bengals right now, that loss was all but the nail in the coffin at this point, falling to 4-8. Let's talk about the other side of things here, Mark. Speaking of coaches, Mike Tomlin, man, how often have we heard people want to run him out of town? With this victory, he secures yet another guaranteed winning season. You've heard the stat 1,000 times. You'll hear it 1,001 right now. He's never had a losing record. He won't have one this year. All they've done is win. And when we're talking about coaches, I mentioned it earlier, but the switch to Russell Wilson, everyone was questioning it. Should they do it? Mike Tomlin came out and said that he went rogue on that solo. He made the decision. And outside of the Jameis Winston experience in the snow, all these boys have done is win week after week after week. But Mark, what the big difference here to me is the amount of times every week where it feels like it's just not going to be the Steelers' day, it winds up being their day. But they're doing it in different ways. 2 victories without a touchdown, multiple victories where they're putting up points that you don't expect the Steelers to do. This is one of them. What was your takeaway watching Russell Wilson go absolutely offset a personal record for yards in this game, put 44 points on the board, and take a full game lead in the division?
Pretty much like he's checked in, and if you go and watch the Hard Knocks, you can see that culture is so different in the Steelers locker room. I made a video on my channel this week talking about I did a Mike Tomlin fire, and I'm absolutely over it. Like, there's about 25% of Steelers fans want to fire Mike Tomlin, and it's that absolute joke. At this point, it's not going to happen. You need to move on. Russell Wilson, I said to you guys a few weeks ago that we're going to go back to him 100% of the time, all the time, because Mike Tomlin was his guy, and that's the reason why they got him in. And Fields was just the QB number 2. Fields was not benched. He was simply filling in for an injured quarterback. That was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has improved this offense from 20 points per game to 27 points per game, and now we have a great defense. And this one too, in this Bengals game, I got to say 2 things. That should have been a penalty on Pickens. There's no way that should have been an interception. I don't know if you guys differ with that one there. But
how about ejection? How come he wasn't ejected from the game?
Pickens?
Yes.
The second one, I don't know why, but I'm saying no. I'm talking about
the first pick six.
You're talking about the pick six where he was falling down.
Pick six was by far that's hands to the face. That's something.
Well, how does he get 2 personal foul calls and not ejected from the game?
I'll give you the first one, and the second one, I feel like the refs just kept him in.
But I'm saying they called it though. So when you get 2 personal fouls,
oh, Zim, I heard the reason behind it. There's different classifications of personal fouls, and it has to be the same one in order to get, which makes absolutely no sense. But
I reckon it could have been because he apparently did it to the fans, and that's okay. So you can flip the fans off.
Yeah, I heard that too.
But you can't do it to the team. So I was thinking he was going to be ejected as well. But I'm going back to the very first play. And I know the refs stuff it all up. But, that was a kind of a game-changing play. And still Russell Wilson overcame that. And, yes, you guys don't have the best secondary. And you're allowing a lot of points. And I want to point out, too, as well, I can't believe, and this is why it warms my heart, Zim. Warms my heart. that you guys, score 33 points, 4 times this season and still don't win. I think that's fantastic.
I think the Steelers get a lot of
Steelers get a lot of flack for like scoring 16 points, and we only win by field goals and doing this, and we, you know, and also I didn't get a chance to shout out Zay. That Browns game was a pretty fun game to watch too.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great game back and forth, right?
Of course,
and
we
yeah,
show.
Y'all
know I was going to let it up that day. I was going to turn up that day, of course.
I got
3 wins is crazy.
Thanksgiving.
We were still going to do it.
Can I tell you that Russell Wilson, I just had to throw this in there. Russell Wilson, 270 yards in yak against the Bengals without their leading linebacker. And you said the secondary, those are all the third and fourth string cornerbacks. So don't get your hopes up.
But on that as well, on that as well, I think the game plan was, I talked about it on my channel as well this week, the game plan was to go the running backs. You had your middle linebacker out. They just took care of business. And I know some media outlets say, oh, they didn't go down the field that much. He did in certain parts. I don't care. Take whatever happens gives you. Tom Brady did it for fucking years. If Tom Brady can do it, we can do it too. You go back and watch his games. He just checked down to the running back, got 15 yards, and then they move the field and they get go kick the field goal. So Russell Wilson had his best, I think his best yardage in a first half ever in his career. And he's completely bought in. The Steelers fans are now buying it. They jump back on the train. Mike Tomlin does deserve to be coach of the year consideration, or at least conversation. They will go to the guys with records and Dan Campbell and those guys. Fair, that's fine enough. But this showed me that the Steelers can score points. 44 points is unbelievable. I didn't like the fact that one more thing about the penalties, and then I'll move on. I didn't like the fact that Leonard Brown was getting like the jump off every single time. Like he was all like false starting a lot in that game. But at the same time, Herbig and TJ Watt overcame that. They're now leading the fumbles in 5-4. This Steelers defense, some Steelers fans were pretty pissed off we gave up 38, but we're versing a high-powered offense that is you guys. So what are you meant to do? And it's a football game played out. I thought it was a really enjoyable game. It was great. And the Steelers now have a chance to go 2 up on the Ravens. So overall, Russ Wilson, he's the guy. He could be the guy for the next 2 or 3 years and then finish out his career.
Mark, let me channel my inner Sam here, because coming up, man, I mean, if there was ever a gauntlet, this will be it. You got the Browns coming up next, a team that you've already lost to earlier in the year. You got the Eagles. They might be playing the best ball in the sport. You got the Ravens. We know how that game goes down every time. It's going to be a nail-biter for sure, and you already took the first one, and it would be crazy to sweep them, and that one, of course, is in Baltimore. Then it's Kansas City on Christmas Day, and you round out against the team that you just had an unreal shootout against. This is crazy to say, but, you know, say the Bills find a way to drop one of the Rams this upcoming week and then they lose to the Lions. Say the Chiefs find a way to lose to the Chargers upcoming here and then you beat them head to head. There is a crazy world out there where these Steelers are still vying for a 1 seed going into this gauntlet. Where are you at right now heading into the final stretch here? Because you've taken care of business. Where's the confidence level after what you've seen?
I'm going to do a reverse. Why does the gauntlet start now, not 4 weeks ago?
No. You're totally right. It's just that, I mean, this is just another phase of absolute hell right here. If you look at it.
The gauntlet has phases, different levels. You know, because it was when it started 4 weeks ago, and here we are 3-1 in the gauntlet. And when we went to the Browns, like I said a few weeks ago, the Steelers have never won that game, divisional game. They're 0-7 into another divisional home house and whatever. So we can't win that one. Scratch that off. Look, it's going to be a tough schedule. The biggest team that threats me, I think, is the Eagles, and then also in the NFC too. They're playing really good football. They're winning 8 in a row. They're on fire right now. So going into their house, we haven't won there since like 1957. That's going to be very tough. I do think. I know we're going to preview the game soon this weekend or this upcoming show. I do think the Steelers bounce back and do not let the Browns take care of it. They cannot allow the Browns to sweep them. That's just that. It doesn't matter about schematics. It's just really hat in the hat. Hit them as hard as you can. They cannot allow them to. You cross your fingers, but they can't allow them to sweep them. They can't. Gauntlet-wise, we're already 3-1 in this gauntlet, and yes, it will be a tough schedule. Eagles, Chiefs. I'll be in Pittsburgh. I'm going to Pittsburgh in like 10 days. So I'll be in for Christmas Day, Steelers versus Chiefs. I'll be there. I'll be trying to catch a glimpse at Taylor Swift. You know what I'm saying? See what's happening. No, not really. I'm not a big fan. More of a Sierra fan.
I think she'd love you. I think she would.
Especially with that.
I'm a star too, right? Kelsey's on TV and so am I. So we'll see what happens.
That's a very fair point.
I like that matchup for you guys, actually.
Same.
Look, I'm telling you right now, I don't know why I feel like that, but I guess we'll get to that. But I'll tell you,
I agree with you completely.
Like,
I feel good about this.
So you talked about penalties. Joey Porter taking 4 PPIs.
You know, 6. He had 6
against a non-route runner. Like Judy gonna route him up, and I feel like them penalties coming. And I just
Ain't it funny how you just said you through this gauntlet you're 3-1? Who'd you lose to during this gauntlet?
No, they're 4-0. Yeah. Oh, that's right.
No, they're 3-1.
Oh, that's right.
See,
I don't care.
See, this gonna be you. If I catch you down in Buffalo, I'm gonna have you like, hey, put some respect on my Cleveland Browns, Z. What the?
Oh, Mark, you got you in a headlock.
It's been too many weeks. It's been too many weeks. You've been disrespecting every time we do something good. We got 3 wins, and every time you've disrespected it, Z. I'm sick of it. All right? I'm sick of it.
Clip it.
Don't let me catch you in Buffalo.
Every time I make an honest mistake, I swear to God, it's at the Browns' expense. I don't know why that happens every single time, but it does. You're so right. The Jameis Winston experience cannot be stopped. Even when it doesn't result in a W, it cannot be stopped. I'm sorry, you're right. That game was incredible, too. That was the lone loss, Mark. You're going to try and bounce back against those Browns this upcoming weekend. But, man, in that 4-game stretch, you're right. I didn't mean to discredit the gauntlet you've already been going through because you had 3 consecutive divisional games. You're going to make it 4. I mean, that's actually insane. 4 consecutive divisional games in the middle of the season. You had that Commanders game as well. The way that they're winning, though, whether it be like this or the Commanders game right down to the wire there, the Ravens game might be the most impressive of them all, where you hold that team to 16 points, don't score a touchdown, and still win. You know, it feels like everyone's waiting for these Steelers to fall off, man. And I don't know. We're in December, Mark. They haven't done it yet.
They're playing team football, and I think a lot of people are just waiting for the playoff collapse because it has happened in the past. And I totally understand that rhetoric, right? I get that. But this team is playing better football than years past. If you go all the stats, and without Matt Canada, without Kenny Pickett, without Trubisky or whoever, Rudolph, they now have a chance to go be 9-3 and control their own destiny to the playoffs, not just limp in. They're playing different team football, and that's why I'm still, being patient with it all, because Zay's going to lose his mind if we lose the first week in the playoffs. You might as well just have the 3 of us would ship out and just have Zay on the screen for 40 minutes.
Oh, you better hope y'all win this week, buddy boy. That fourth win. That fourth win going to be crazy if you lose this week.
They won't lose twice in a row.
All right.
Tell you what, four wins for Cleveland, 3 of the 4 being 2 against Pittsburgh and 1 against Baltimore would just be absolutely insane. I mean, that would just be crazy, man.
Can I say that I'm like now that I'm in the losing, I'm totally out of it. My perspective and what I've been trying to talk about, I guess, the whole entire season now is the doors were opening wide up. For the last couple of years, they told me I was nothing because if you don't win a Super Bowl, it's nothing. It's so crazy to hear like a Steelers fan get excited about like we're winning in week 12 and like it's just so crazy to me because at the end of the day, if you don't walk away with a ring, nobody's going to give a shit. And I'm living for
but that's all 31 teams. Should I sit here being depressed?
My division rivals have told me that for the last couple of years. They watched me win playoff games. They said that wasn't enough. They said you went to a Super Bowl. Oh, okay, that's a second place trophy. Nobody cares about that. And now here we are.
Yeah, I know that feeling all too well. Believe me. I'll tell you what, I'll celebrate it pretty heavily this year, but it's just anybody but Kansas City. I mean, I'm really at that point. I'm really just there, If it can't be Buffalo, let it be literally anybody else, and you will find me with at least a half grin on my face in the beginning of February. We got some super chats.
Before we move on, though.
Sure.
Hey, Sam, did you see your boy Rex Ryan come out and pretty much say the same thing you said on your hot take?
What did he say?
He said he's seen this Chiefs team before. They're a first round exit.
Thank you. Chiefs are one and done. They're not.
Rex, you guys better zip it because you're going to talk them in, Rex in particular. You're going to talk them in. You're going to talk them into doing it again, and I'm going to lose my shit.
Yeah, Rex isn't a winner.
Everyone needs to keep saying, "I'll tell you what, these Chiefs are scary. These Chiefs are scary." That's when we get them. Yeah, right? Zim knows.
If you get in a close game with them, that referee whistle comes on out, they are scary.
Yeah, they're going to make up a... Dude.
Those clips of the refs going down every week, and it's like, oh, unfortunate, another Chiefs player goes down.
Come on, last week.
Raiders score was pretty terrible, right?
Dude is running
Yeah,
onto the field to tell him that the play doesn't count. And when he says, "Oh
That
shit,"
Raiders call was nuts. How do
And
you
then he just
blow the
changed it
whistle and change
we're
the actual call?
we're gonna kill the game and not even give him a field goal opportunity. Come on, bro.
That makes you think about the game a lot.
Yeah, you talk that cheat shit and then you get into a game with them and it's close.
Yeah.
You know, it's a mix of terrible calls and then the opposing coach always making a bad decision. Why you trot Aiden O'Connell out there with 11 seconds and no timeouts is incomprehensible to me. Kick the damn field goal. Oh my God, It never ends. It never, ever ends. That's why I'm telling you, we got to just keep hyping him up because, you know it's in you. You call it a Burrow head and whatever. They always give him a little thing. They always get a little thing and they always make it a big thing. And God, I hate him. God, do I hate him.
I'm the only blemish on their resume.
Yeah, I know it. I know it. I know. Yeah, I would wear that. Like I would wear that badge of honor like I was Tom Brady wearing my 7 rings. I swear to God.
You know,
it's something.
Like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have any rings. Get out of here, you stupid Bronco.
It's unbelievable.
I don't even talk to them anymore. Like I just forgot that they even exist, bro.
Super chat's coming in from Sean, big Steelers fan. He's saying to clinch the North, Steelers needs 2 wins. 1 this week against the Browns and 1 against the Ravens on the 21st. I mean, would there ever be a more deserving AFC North title than if they were to kind of go through this stretch here of what seems like just endless divisional games and rattle them off, with, of course, the only blemish being Zay's Browns? That would be quite impressive. Sean's also saying when it comes to Cleveland and Cincinnati, the only question is who's racing to the basement first, says Sean. Wow. All right.
Shots fired.
Throwing a little shade in there. Sean's also saying Tomlin is coach of the year. You can make the argument, but you know what, Mark? What sucks about that, when you've been around as long as Tomlin has, they just don't give it to you. That's what sucks.
My thing
when you're too successful, it doesn't happen.
But see, I think I think he has a special case this year because he ultimately made one of the greatest coaching decisions I think we've ever seen in recent years, where he went against the grain and benched Justin Fields when no one in their right mind would have done that. I think that is something that you have to take into account because that definitely put this team on another level.
Totally agree. I feel like if it didn't work out, the amount of oh my God, he needs to go would be crazy, right, Mark? Yep. I mean, it would probably be nuts.
I wouldn't be here. I'd probably have to cancel something. I couldn't handle the fans of our life. They already cry when we win. Imagine when they lose.
Sean saying Steelers have a long history of winning hats and T-shirts in Baltimore. Bring them on. They got to get through the Browns first. And then if they do, in Baltimore could be a hat and T-shirt night for Pittsburgh. Wild stuff going down in the AFC North. Speaking of those Baltimore Ravens, let's transition from the Steelers to the Ravens, who took on potentially the hottest team in the sport right now with a running back that has the best chance to win the MVP since Adrian Peterson did it over a decade ago. The Ravens fall to the Philadelphia Eagles 24-19, not as close as the score might indicate. They scored with a second left, Sam, to make that game a bit closer. The second half of that game, man, I don't know. Early start for Baltimore looked like the better team. Unfortunately, Justin Tucker might have been the difference in this game, and there's a lot of questions surrounding what could be the greatest kicker we've ever seen being a detriment right now to Baltimore. Meanwhile, Philly's just rolling. 8 straight wins. Saquon Barkley is a maniac, and Hurts is just doing enough to win them games and not doing anything to harm them. And that's a dangerous team with the way that they're playing offensively, matched with a defense that's coming along week after week and emerging into one of the better ones in the league currently. So this was a huge game for Baltimore. Fall to 8-5 at home. It's the second time only, right, that he's lost to an NFC team, which makes Lamar, that is, which makes it even more unprecedented. So interesting one here. I'll start with you, Zim, because early on in the game, it did feel like Baltimore looked like the better team, or at least like they came out looking like they were going to be able to hang in there at least through the distance. But once it got through the first half and into the second, this was just Philly's game all the way through. And Justin Tucker, of course, having an off day that is followed up a few off days this season didn't help either. Your takeaway from Baltimore against Philly?
There's very few teams in the NFL that could match Baltimore up front. So you see like their battles with Steelers. You see what I'm saying? Like those are games that if you take it to them up front and you got the trenches to match up with them, those are the only teams that can beat them. That's why, no disrespect to you, Zee, but I thought that when you guys played them, whatever, I just felt like the trenches is just a different. And think about it, the Bengals are the only team in the AFC North with like weak trenches. We got firepower, but we got weak trenches. So all these other teams that match up with them up front, whether it's offensive or defensively, I feel like those are the teams that give him problems. And now that we're like week 13, 14, a lot of the stuff that Monken was running early in the season, a lot of the overs and stuff, teams are reacting to it very fast. And I thought another thing that showed his head in this game is Trenton Simpson and Roquan together. It's not Patrick Queen and Roquan together. It's different. Like the depth of Trent Simpson's identification of run plays and pass and like the delay. He has all the measurables in the world. I liked him coming out of college or whatever, but his delayed reaction to some of this stuff, it takes away all of that combine stuff if you're not reacting like that. And I thought like last week you saw them without Roquan. This week you saw them together, but the communication and what they're doing is just not a good linebacker tandem. Marcus Williams or whatever throughout the season or whatever. Like there's too many things I think defensively that stick out to me in this game. Saquon Barkley, I know people aren't going to like this, I guess. Well, Ravens fans ain't going to like it. Saquon Barkley, if this wasn't like a quarterback's award, he's my pick for the MVP. If you really watch like Philly games, I'm sorry, like Jalen Hurts, I think he's an okay quarterback or above average quarterback, but bro, he's got Hall of Fame tackles. He's got the trenches on a lot, you know what I'm saying? And then he's got Saquon, who we watch for years go run behind these piss poor offensive line. And now that he has it, unlike a lot of these other guys like Derrick Henry, Mixon, and all these guys that have to get like geared up, Saquon and Kamara and guys, they're so like slithery like at the beginning of the games, and they got this boost to their game when you watch them run versus other running backs that when they hit you with it, like it's out of nowhere. They don't need
it. Oh, there you
go. But because they have the trenches that they do, they're like, yeah, take these. And like the threat of that, don't nobody want to tackle them, and nobody wants to get lined up one-on-one. I thought like that was the deal with me. Like I feel like the record, that Lamar record, generally NFC has a bunch of teams that are weak as fuck up front. And I think the Eagles are one of the one teams that you could look at and say, they're not no slouches right there. I still have like doubts on their linebacking core, but their secondary for the Eagles, like that class that they brought in, is nasty. Like they got so like the Cooper DeJean, like hit on him, like all these different things that they're doing, they're for real. We got our ass whooped by. We were in contention. We did some stupid shit. Went for it on fourth down or whatever. They made us pay. Every time that we made a mistake, they made us pay. And if they get in a short yardage situation, like it's a done deal. Like you might as well just pack it up and just play for their first down. And I think you got a chance to see that.
Yeah, it felt like Detroit was in a class of their own in the NFC a while ago, and now it just feels completely different with the injuries Detroit suffered on defense. I'm not sure Philly isn't the best team in the NFC right now, maybe potentially the best team in football right now. Even with that said, Zay, I mean, these Ravens were up 9-0, and they essentially finished with 12 points. They were up 9-0 in the first quarter, and if it weren't for a touchdown with 3 ticks left on the clock, they would have another field goal to show for the rest of the game. So what was your takeaway here from what you saw from Baltimore against Philly right now, who's red hot?
I think my biggest takeaway was after, obviously I'll get into the game, but I think the biggest takeaway comes after the game when Lamar Jackson told us what his mother said. And I think Sam touched on it. We touched on it the previous shows ago where we talked about needing the perfect loss getting into a certain situation. I think this was the perfect loss, and not only was it the perfect loss, you got the perfect response from his mother, and that's going to fuel him on a whole nother level. And it just feels like this whole year Lamar Jackson is trying to prove a point with his passing ability, and I think he's trying to minimize his legs, and I just don't think that's the best thing for the Baltimore Ravens. They are scary. They are scary when Lamar Jackson is doing what he wants to do whenever he wants to do. They're not as scary, but they're still scary when he just wants to be a pocket passer. I think if Lamar Jackson gets back to, he's throwing the ball really well in my opinion. I see hella good throws. If he just gets back to being aggressive with his legs, I think this goes to a whole nother level. On the term of with the Saquon Barkley thing, Zim, I'm right there with you. I made a video saying before the Buffalo game that Saquon was the MVP. Didn't matter. If Josh Allen didn't have that performance, I don't think we're talking about it right now. I think Saquon gives the Eagles this different level that it's just like, you can't prepare. Like, I don't know. And Saquon is just that different breed. And you did a great job breaking it down. I won't go any more into that. But I think this was the perfect loss for the Ravens going into December football. And if Lamar Jackson does what he said he's going to do in the post game, have fun.
Big loss for the Ravens, Mark, a team that you guys have already beat. You play in a couple of weeks, and they're the only team right now standing in your way potentially of not winning this division. So what was your takeaway on a day where you guys have a crazy divisional win, then you watch these Ravens fall to 8-5, lose another big game, and kind of give you a nice little cushion potentially going into that big matchup in a couple of weeks?
My biggest takeaway is someone on the kicking team unit has to run into Tucker's leg and get him onto IR. I think they need to get him on IR because I think he's going to cost some games, to be honest.
He's washed.
I think it's a real problem because the Ravens are in a really funny situation, right? He's a great kicker, awesome kicker, and I don't want him hurt. It's not any joke, but he's a great kicker. However, he is costing them games. And if they go to playoffs and they can't cut him, they can't put him on IR, they keep using him, he keeps missing. He's 70%, and John Harbaugh keeps going, oh, by the way, you're good from 50. No, he's not anymore. They're going to cost him games. So I don't know what Sam thinks about that. But to me, if I was a Steelers fan and my guy was like that, you love him. But you can't bench him because he's been a Raven for so long, and therefore he's going to cost them games. Dead set. That was my biggest takeaway, being he could have won the game getting field goals. Sam said it a few weeks ago, oh, you only scored field goals. Your team needed 2 field goals, and here we are with a loss. I'm sorry.
Damn.
No, that's all I have.
That's all you needed. That was terrific.
That was really good.
Protect your face, Sam.
I know, for real.
Did I say that? I don't think Tucker's done though. I think they all kids hit like a little slump, but I don't think he's done. I mean, I think that's because he's killed me for too long. I'm like,
he's
one of the best. He's one of the best.
I was reading the comment section on the stuff, and I was seeing Raven fans saying, "I'm telling you, he sold his soul for that longest field goal record. He ain't been right ever since."
What?
That's what Raven fans been saying it, and it ain't regular fans. I'm like, oh, these Raven fans saying that. Like, what the heck?
I'm gonna tell you all the time that Lamar's been there. Top 3 defense in the greatest kicker is one of the best, the most low key, underrated moves in the history of football.
Yeah, and no one brings that up ever with Harrison Butker in Kansas City either, which is another factor.
Well, no one brings it up with the Steelers either. Chris Boswell is leading 50 plus, and I hope we never do.
No, he's the new Chris Boswell. They said it on the broadcast. It's like, Chris Boswell missed. He is human. I'm like, what the heck? That's Justin Tucker's line.
Yeah. Boswell's leading the league in points, I believe. He's absolutely money. Sam, talk to me, because the way we've talked about these Ravens all year long, it would be hard to believe that they are 8-5 right now. It just doesn't feel like the way we've talked about them, the way we think about them, that they are 8-5. But here they are, a couple of bad losses. I don't know if this is a bad loss. We all know how good Philly is. It felt bad because it just didn't feel like the Ravens played up to the caliber that we expect them to. Your takeaway from what you saw against Philly?
Yeah, so I was at the game, really close, actually, second row. So I got to see a lot, and I was behind the bench. So I got to see the mannerisms, how the players were reacting to stuff. So as soon as Rashad Bateman went out, it was tough. Rashad Bateman left with a knee injury. I'm not sure if you guys saw, but Deontay Johnson, the guy we traded for from the Panthers, decided not to go in the game. He just decided flat out, I'm not going to play.
What's going on, man?
Yeah, so he's suspended for a game. I think he's upset because we didn't give him the rock pretty much. Since he got here, he only got a few targets, and he's either dropped it or fell on his face or something like that. So that's a little bit of intrigue to go into it. So I think, one, losing Rashad Bateman and having to rely on Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar, who are really good in their own rights, but against this team who plays a lot of man coverage to stop the run, having a guy like Deontay Johnson out there would have probably played huge dividends because he has that separation. But really it boils down to 2 things. One, we mentioned that Tucker missed those kicks. The touchdowns that the Eagles scored, they started either inside their own 50 or at the 50-yard line or at the Ravens 42 or in the Ravens 32-yard line. Those are the only 3 instances. So basically they had great field position because of those missed kicks to get those touchdowns. That's really what it boiled down to. And if the Ravens had converted those kicks, it probably would have been a different game. Even as I say that, the Eagles' defensive front just demolished the Ravens' offensive front all day. Jalen Carter looked amazing. Milton looked amazing. They were just doing whatever they had to do. And that's why I believe Lamar Jackson's mom said, hey, you got to take off and run when you see your offensive line breaking down like that. And I think Lamar was just trying to stay in the pocket or move 10 steps back to give his receiver some time, give himself some time to get the throw off, and it just didn't pay huge dividends. But in my opinion, I still take good things away from this game. I think the Ravens defense has really stepped up. They held Jalen Hurts, I believe, 118 yards passing in this game, which is crazy. Through the last 3 weeks since they've made that shift to Kyle Hamilton, the back-end safety, the Ravens are the number 1 pass defense in the league. So they're looking good on defense, which gives me hope the offense is starting to struggle. They haven't been able to put it together, but you hope as a Ravens fan they do so. But it's all about Justin Tucker. I think it's going to boil down to it. When you get into December, when you get into January, when you play the Bills, when you play the Steelers, when you play the Chiefs, it's going to come down to a field goal. And do you trust Justin Tucker to make it? I think he gets it together, but you never know. It goes either way. He hasn't looked very good. He's missed the most kicks out of anybody in football. So unfortunately, it looks like it's going to come down to Tucker, and the Ravens aren't going anywhere. They're going to stick with him at least for this season. So if you're a Ravens fan and you're hoping that they make it all the way, you got to hope Justin Tucker gets it together, because if they don't, you got Chris Boswell, you got the kicker for the Chiefs, and you got the Bills out there who can put points up, and there's something you can do to stop it.
Sam, can I ask you, do you think, and I have a theory, I feel like Josh Allen and Lamar both did this last year. Do you feel like he's saving his legs for the playoffs?
Who? Lamar?
Yeah.
I've heard something like that. I've heard that he's trying to save himself. It just seems like that game looks so much like the AFC Championship game to me. It just scares me to think that he's really just trying to get the ball to his guys. I mean, Zay Flowers is a guy that he knows very well. You saw what he did with Mark Andrews in that game. It just seems to me that he really believes he can get it done with his arm. And there's some truth to that. It's faster to get down the field throwing the football than taking those 5, 6, 7 yards with his legs. So I hope he's saving his legs for the playoffs, because when you get to the postseason, these teams know exactly how to play him. And the interior offensive line isn't getting any better. They're not going to make any changes. So the only reason why the Steelers didn't have as much success against this O-line as the Eagles and the Browns is because the Steelers decided to put T.J. Watt on the outside and just dare you to beat them on the edge. And if T.J. Watt was to rush from the interior, it would be the same problems that we're having with Patrick McCarry and Daniel Falele. So I think that he needs to get it together. He needs to start running the ball a little bit more, especially against these teams with great defensive fronts, because, again, when playoffs start, you're playing nothing but great defenses. So we'll see. I don't know.
Sean coming back and he's saying Tucker is a Hall of Famer, but the Wizard of Boz is better. Well, I'll say this. Luckily for Justin Tucker, luckily for you, Sam, luckily for all of Ravens Nation, you're playing the damn Giants this upcoming week, so things should get right in a hurry in East Rutherford this upcoming weekend. But then things get interesting. You got Pittsburgh, of course, Houston, who I don't know what's going on with Houston, but and then you got the Browns to end the season. And I got a feeling there'll be a lot on the line in that game. And Zay, your Browns might not be playing for a playoff spot, but they might be playing to ruin somebody else's in that game. Let's talk about those Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about the Jameis Winston experience. Oh my God, that was just an absolute show that we got on Monday night. On one end, wow, Bo Nix, that's the closest guy I've seen to Josh Allen since Josh Allen's entered the league. I just said that guy seems like he's got something special there in his rookie year. With Sean Payton, that looks like somebody that could wind up being a real threat in this league coming up here. I just find it fascinating, by the way. It seems like all the time the AFC just gets loaded with the talent here. I know it's coming along in the NFC with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and whatnot, but just feels like nonstop every year the AFC just keeps getting loaded up with the quarterback talent. And speaking of quarterback talent, Jameis Winston, that was just, you'll never see anything like that again unless you watch Jameis Winston again coming up here soon. Jameis Winston, 34 of 58, 497 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 for the Browns, 2 for the Denver Broncos. Yeah, I'll tell you what, outside of Josh Allen, that is my favorite player in the league right now for every reason that I'm sure all of you share with me. It's just the guy he's the best. And I was saying this off air before we started. It feels like this Browns team would be in a different spot. I don't know how much different, but certainly different to me if Jameis Winston had started the whole year. And what he brings you, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, is electric, entertaining-ass football every single time he drops back. They could have had this game won, and, it didn't go in their favor, but it looks like Cleveland has a lot to work with here if they end up making a decision that's going to certainly be tough to make. But they do fall 32-41 to Denver. A lot to unpack in this one, Mark. It was a crazy game to watch. What was your big takeaway from Cleveland versus Denver?
My big takeaway is to do with the AFC awards. How Josh Allen got the AFC Player of the Week. I don't know why I didn't go towards Judy, honestly. He played fantastic. I know you got the reception on the lateral and the pitch back and the snow game, and Allen's all cool and all great and stuff. But he had 100 yards. But Judy played fantastic in this game. Like, it was on fire. And it's just one of those things where it was like a Winston game where you get almost 400, 500 yards, but then he's throwing interceptions and, back and forth. And the Denver Broncos, like, it was a crazy game, but I don't know. I wouldn't feel too comfortable coming out of this win. But yeah, I thought that Judy played fantastic, and we got to next week when we versus the Browns that JPJ's got to make sure he's not being too handsy out there because you got to try and slow this guy down. But he was like one of the most receiving yards in NFL history or something like that in a game. But the team lost. So just how the Browns season's going. So overall, I thought it was for me, it was fun to watch. Like it's a spectacle out there. It was crazy to watch. But as a Browns fan or Denver fan, you would have been like absolutely, shitting your pants in every different drive, right? I thought it was really good. Yeah, Judy to me should have got the some sort of award or something or some, congratulations for that game.
Yeah, most receiving yards in NFL history for a player going up against his former team. Good call on that,
That's
Mark.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he absolutely went off, and you're right. I mean, I'll be unbiased. If Allen doesn't have that play from Cooper, he probably wouldn't have won the AFC Player of the Week. But you know how it goes. I mean, if in all likelihood, Joe Burrow would be an MVP candidate, but they have 4 wins. Like when you lose the game, they just don't give awards out like that, which kind of sucks because that was an unbelievable performance by Jerry Jeudy and an unbelievable performance all around throughout this entire game. It was just it was kind of like Chiefs Rams from a handful of years back, but just a lighter version of that where it just every single series felt crazy. Sam, what was your takeaway from watching the Browns against Denver on Monday night?
The Browns should be very happy with what they saw because the Broncos have a great defense, and I wasn't expecting them to put up those type of points. And Winston's the type of quarterback, and we know it. He trusts his arm more than anybody. So if he sees an opening that he thinks he can make, he's going to make the throw. And sometimes it works for him, and sometimes it doesn't, and maybe that's the knock on him. But overall, I think Winston is a perfect quarterback for this offense. He definitely has similar skill sets to that of Joe Flacco, which is probably why he's had so much success so far here. But all in all, I think it's going to be a great offseason for the Browns. I think they have a lot of decisions to make about what to do in the quarterback room because they are simply a quarterback away. It seems every time you get a decent quarterback on this roster, things start to happen. I know they ended up with the loss, and there are no moral victories in the National Football League, but this is another instance where this front office has to take a good look at themselves and figure out what are we going to do in the offseason because we're not too far away from being one of the better teams in this league.
Zim, what do the Browns do with Jameis Winston?
I think it makes it very difficult for them. I think the exact opposite. I think it makes it so if he just sucked, then they would just go straight to the draft and just go get a quarterback. Even if they went and got a quarterback, you still got that whole Jameis Winston thing like looming over top of you. You know what? I started now that I'm a mock draft guy, right? I've recently been, one of those guys. I've been looking at D tackles and stuff. I know with them losing Tomlinson, I don't want them to go get Mason Graham. So if you guys watch college football or whatever, they got some D tackles that I think early in the draft, I will be nervous. I want the Browns to get a quarterback or something like that, like one of them trash quarterbacks. But regardless, to move forward with Jameis Winston is tricky because you got to take the good with the bad. It's super. I've been saying that on the show all the time. It's is he going to make the mistakes or whatever? I think he could put it together for a whole season, and you're right. The season probably would have looked a lot different. If they had played him, I don't know if that's playoff football, but it would look different. So it's a tricky one. I don't know what the Browns folks are thinking about it, but it's quite the conundrum when I think about it.
Zay, this is now 2 years in a row where another quarterback not named Deshaun Watson comes in, and these Browns are an entertaining-ass football team who are competitive, putting up points, and are, a team that you wouldn't be hoping to see on your schedule. I mean, it's a different football team overall, and now here it is. I know Jameis Winston has 2 pick sixes in this game, 3 total picks, but, you guys mentioned it. Denver's defense was second in scoring coming into this game, and Jameis Winston lit that whole thing up all night long. So where's the fan base at right now, Zay? Where are you at? And overall, what's the move here? Because I feel like this is certainly, you have another chance here after Flacco last year to sit back and say, what are we doing here? We've been given another chance. What's the move?
Well, before I get into what is the move, you mentioned Joe Flacco. On Browns Daily just a couple of days ago, Nathan Zagura talked about, I don't know if you just seen it, this just happened. Nathan Zagura talked about a Spam sandwich, might I add. Joe Flacco being the bread, Jameis Winston being the other piece, and Deshaun Watson being the Spam, and saying that it just wasn't, you kind of know that you got to put that to bed. They clapped back and said, don't you dare ever compare us to Deshaun Watson, because he's not the... Like he got you the reputation that he carries. We don't have that, so don't ever compare us to that. So that's us.
Wait,
Wow.
Joe Flacco actually said that?
No, spam. The company
No kidding.
That's
sent
crazy.
the email to Browns Daily,
Oh.
a full bullet point 2-page email saying, "Hey, don't you ever compare us to Deshaun Watson again. Maybe compare us to a guy like Nicholas Jamal Chubb, and we'll send you a care package to show you what our product is about." Just
Oh
wanted
my
to throw that
gosh.
out there. Biggest clapback I've ever seen in my life.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
But you want to talk about
From spam.
from spam, the actual spam company. It's the
Wow.
craziest thing ever. But you ask, where do we go? You know, this fan base is so divided right now. Because one group wants this, one group wants this, one group doesn't care, another group thinks it's the end of the world. There's so many different groups of Browns fans right now that it's very hard to pinpoint which one you really want to listen to. Where I'm at with it is, I think it's a very sticky situation like Zim talks about. They've already had a PR nightmare this year. And if you bring Jameis Winston back and decide to go the route, the question that I've been posing the past couple of days is, do you decide to draft a quarterback and move on from Jameis Winston? Or do you keep Jameis Winston and trade down or take a lineman or take a different whatever you want to do? Because you can't do both. You can't keep Jameis Winston and bring in a guy at number 5 at the quarterback position because you know what's going to happen with the fan base. They're going to... they will run Jameis Winston out the second he throws an interception. And then you're going to have that looming over you every single week. And then the coach is going to come out again and lie to us saying Jameis Winston gives us the best chance to win, a.k.a. Deshaun Watson gives us the best chance to win. And next thing you know, we're sitting at 1-6. So you can't go into next year with this quarterback catastrophe. You got to have one guy that you love and another and figure out the rest. So I think this offseason is going to be huge in that aspect. And ultimately, I think if Jameis Winston continues on this path where it's fun and he continues to make these mistakes, he will not play himself out of a contract. I think he'll get the money that he rightfully deserves because you have that risk. But let's just say he doesn't throw those 2-pick interceptions and he does throw for the 500 yards and 4 touchdowns and we do win this game. The conversation is, how do you retain Jameis Winston? So I think these next few weeks, they're going to have to look at them and evaluate him and say, okay, is he going to fix the turnover issue? Because if he does fix the turnover issue, his agent will warrant more money, which will make it harder to retain him. But if he continues on this path, there's no reason why you don't bring back Jameis Winston and ride this thing out. Because, like I keep saying, my theory behind all of this, man, it doesn't feel like there's real true light until Brook Park. I think the Haslams want to build their legacy from scratch. I don't think they want to have anything to do with this tainted organization and the poverty that comes with it. And I think if they can keep their head above water and stay relevant and continue to just bring in the dollars, that's all they really care about these next 4 years. So that's where I'm at with it right now. And please, like Zim said, don't do what Zim says. Do not go get that quarterback unless it's Shador and Prime together. That's the only thing I want. Or Travis Hunter.
What happens, though, when someone takes Jameis off your hands if they do decide not to retain him and he goes out and winds up resurrecting his career like we've seen Geno Smith do, like we've seen Baker Mayfield do? What happens then when you have then another example of a guy you had in the building that you forfeited for the guy that nobody wants in the building?
Well, I think we have to see if Kevin Stefanski survives the season. I think a lot of people feel like he's probably going to survive the season, I won't say survive the season, if he makes it out and comes in next year. Does he get fired at the end of this year? I mean, when you take away play calling duty from him, I mean, that's kind of the first step, right? But then you see it's like, well, Jameis Winston looks really good in this offense, but then you're like, well, wait, Ken Dorsey's now calling the plays. So I think if Kevin Stefanski is still our coach, I think it leaves the door open for you to be like, okay, we can let Jameis walk because let's be honest, every quarterback has thrived with Kevin Stefanski's offense other than Deshaun Watson. You've seen flashes with DTR. You've seen Joe Flacco. You saw some Baker Mayfield. You saw all these quarterbacks come in and do decent things with the offense. Jacoby Brissett. So I think you could probably go out and get another guy to fit the system. But again, that plays into my theory that if you do that you're showing me you don't want to win. You're showing me you don't really care until you get to Brook Park.
Hey Zay, did that snow game against us save your coach's season? Like, were they going to fire him after that if they lost?
It's funny you asked that because I think it did save his season. I think that was the game where it would have all but sealed the deal. Even if he made it throughout the season, I think that would have been the nail in the coffin. but the way that they won it. Oh, and you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. We got to worry about Jerry Jeudy next week. Y'all didn't worry about him last week, buddy. He went 6 for 85 and caught some pretty damn tough balls in coverage in the snow, taking hits against the brutal steel curtains. And I won't get back on that. We passed that, but I just wanted you to, we coming for you next week. But yeah, go ahead. Enough of my brownies. We're 3-1 team, right, Zim?
Sean's coming in. He's saying Jameis is a wannabe Big Ben Roethlisberger. Hey, if Jameis wants to be a 2-time Super Bowl champ and a Hall of Famer, I say, why not try and pursue it, folks? That's going to do it for us on the AFC North Roundtable. An hour in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. On your way out the door, like button if you could. Subscribe button if you could. And all of the Week 14 lines are up right now on BetUS. Go get in on them with the promo code YouTube150. That'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit and 125% bonus on your next two after that. Be on the lookout for the Week 14 preview episode coming your way later this week. I love that hat, by the way. Look at that. You got Cyclops, Joe Burrow smoking one down. Man, I got a feeling he'd be smoking it.
Bengals pack. He's smoking that Bengals pack.
I thought he was Batman now. Didn't he turn into Batman last week or something?
We just drive Batman cars.
It's Batman.
No big deal.
Hey, I know I felt bad for Burrow earlier, but I mean, he's out there buying the Batmobile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The messed up part, he's having a conversation with T. Higgins sitting right there. And I'm like, you could just give up the Batmobile and I could probably sign T. Higgins right there. I don't know if Bengals fans felt like that, but I kind of was like,
oh my God. Oh, that's actually hilarious. Yeah, that would be classic, though. Joe Burrow having to put up his own money to sign T. Higgins, but whatever. Crazy. All right, we got more coming your way later in the week, previewing Week 14. Can't wait to see you there. But until then, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Mark, Sam, Zay, and Zim. I'm your host, Z-Bot. Thanks again for tuning into the AFC North Roundtable, and we'll see you on the next one.